Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. Now we're in that awful period between beta and release. I wanted to talk about general popularity of the weapons. What's looking to be the most popular weapons going in and why? And remember, in the betas we played, of course that's the older versions of the weapons. We know thanks to the community update and different press stuff that there is lots of weapon changes coming. Obviously things they've told us about, more obvious changes you could probably feel if you played it, but maybe some subtle stuff too. We hopefully will get some patch notes or something on. But going from that beta experience and the older versions of the weapons, going forward with what we know about the weapons and how they're going to change, what are the most popular weapons and why? I want to talk about it. So we ran this poll, asking a simple question: what do you think you're going to play in Wilds? Now, we did allow 3 options or 3 votes for this. So you had 3 votes. Let's start with what's the most popular because I think it's obvious. It's Greatsword, with 12% of the vote, just under 500 votes total. For our audience, this makes sense. Josh has basically been mostly just playing Greatsword for the majority of the time. He's been playing the entire series since the first game, and we were lucky enough to actually get to do a spotlight for all the different weapons. It's something that they're doing on their Twitter account right now. Each weapon's getting a spotlight, a little highlight, and different community creators have been asked to make a video for the respective weapon they're very well known for. So Josh was asked to do Greatsword. I think it's fairly known at this point that Josh is a big Greatsword guy, and so we have a pretty big Greatsword audience. Does that mean the weapon isn't amazing in Wilds? Absolutely not. It's phenomenal. Having an incredible DPS output on, say, its focus attack, with a unique animation behind it, it's very cool. The fact that with its guard, which is newly improved in Wilds to be more reactive responsive, is also a key way to activate clashes as another new mechanic. It's got heavy hits, good range, it can cut tails. They're some of the coolest looking weapon designs in the entire series. In terms of changes, there's only really one big thing we know about that's coming, which is ultimately that they're increasing the damage, the hit values of the true charge slash to make it, the biggest hit in the game again. So even compared to the beta, it's only going to hit harder and be an even stronger weapon at launch. So that's the most popular weapon. Let's jump to the least popular weapons and work our way up then. At the bottom, we have these two, heavy bowgun and light bowgun, which doesn't come as much of a surprise to me, especially with the context of Wilds, where personally, I think their showings, their updates, aren't as impressive as I would have hoped. Not to say that they're bad weapons, in fact they're very high performers in terms of the arkveld beta speedrun times. Heavy bowgun is probably going to be one of the most popular secondary weapons for the game thanks to demon ammo and the perks of having a ranged heavy hitting weapon outside of your main weapon. But why so unpopular as your main weapon? Well, I think it just comes down to the way that Wilds has changed them. Between the two, heavy bowgun on paper seems a lot more interesting and engaging, a lot fresher with the new mechanics that have come, compared to light bowgun. After all, both of them are ranged weapons, using similar ammo types, obviously some differences. They both have a new energy system where you build it up and then spend it. And then that seems to result in different things, but there's a lot of overlap in that mechanic. Meanwhile, heavy bowgun gets a shield that's kind of built in, giving you some defensive block options, but also accessing the clash mechanic. It also amazingly has an offset as a ranged weapon. It's definitely one of the hardest, if not the hardest offset in the game. Light bowgun is, of course, able to shoot and fire and move around very smoothly at the same time. It's going to be a very beginner-friendly weapon, and especially as a ranged weapon, there's lots of perks to that. But by comparison, it's got the same updates as heavy bowgun, but less, and so it being the least popular in this vote didn't surprise me. Above that, then, we have Lance at 5%, just over 5%, 215 votes, sharing the same number with Hunting Horn. Firstly, Lance, not so surprising being lower in the list. Its performance in the beta was actually not terrible. It definitely has a lot of criticism about the way the gameplay loop kind of works right now. As the devs themselves said in the community update, they feel that Lance, based on what they saw in the beta, the first one, they've added some new gameplay loops that are great. You're very offensive, aggressive with a Lance, which is not a bad thing, but the other side of the Lance, where you're defensive, counterattacking, taking big hits and retaliating, that's not seeing enough gameplay or engagement, not in the old beta version of the weapon. So in the new version, we know they've got a new counterattack style attack that seems very strong. Obviously with the Lance, you have the whole shield and bonk KO aspect that now exists for it. They're generally improving the moveset for launch. So I think more people are going to at least give it a try. I hope more people do. But Hunting Horn in 11th place, that's a surprise. It's in an interesting point right now as Hunting Horn. That little bit of a middle ground between the Rise version, which was super aggressive, to the more alternate hammer version of the world. To me though, it definitely stands out as its own weapon now. I think the echo bubbles are incredible. Some of the stuff we're seeing in the speedruns are super cool, where you're getting 1 or 2 echo bubbles down while maximizing bonk damage at the head on a knockdown creature, reverberating the songs, getting extra damage from that. Actually having wide area control because of it, I think it's awesome. We do know that they're technically going to buff it for the full release version as well, though it won't really change anything we experienced in the beta. They told us that in internal testing, the Hunting Horn was overperforming as a secondary weapon for, attack up large song melody to then swap to your main weapon with that buff. In internal testing, everyone was pretty much doing that because it was so good. Whereas in the beta, we didn't really have buffs as potent as that, so never saw that. If you're using the Hunting Horn, the buffs are going to be more potent for yourself, but if you do the buffs then change to a different weapon, those buffs will last a lot less time. Basically, if you're directly using the Hunting Horn as your main weapon, it's going to be even stronger in terms of output, so I hope its popularity does jump up. Next, 10th place then, we have Sword and Shield. This one makes sense, being lower in the popularity. It's not really a surprise in general. It is more of a beginner-friendly weapon. Overall, it is nice to be able to use items and not have to put your weapon away while you're doing stuff. But in Wilds, I guess they've kind of treaded on SNS's uniqueness in that way. If you didn't realize, you can put mantles on without putting your weapon away. You could fire, say, a flash pod without putting your weapon away. It's not universal like it is for SNS, but what I'm saying is it's kind of treading on that unique aspect of the weapon. SNS does allow you to flow around the monster and the whole fight, never really overcommitting to long animations. In the beta, there are actually some issues with that. For example, the new charge chop, really strong but does have a really long animation lock. And with the new attack leaning into a new combo, that's kind of overshadowed other ways to play, such as Perfect Rush. In the full release version, we know that they've really unlocked the weapon in terms of mobility. You should be able to attack and flow and move around without ever stopping, able to guard at the drop of a hat or weave into a different combo from most any other attack. Charge chop shouldn't hold you in place as long, and they've seemingly improved the motion values of the Perfect Rush to encourage that being a valid option again. So I think the launch version is going to feel significantly better than the beta version. Maybe its popularity will increase because of that. Up next though, above that, we have Hammer, which is fair enough at 9th place. Hammer is doing great in Wilds. I think a lot of people have fallen in love with the mighty charge spin. It's super satisfying. Lots of quality of life though is here, whether you're using the grapple to move while you're charging, or leaning into some of the best offset options out of all the weapons. Here you can hold it like a counter, which feels a lot easier to do. To access it, obviously it's behind different movesets, but it's the fact that they made it so Spinning Bludgeon can be comboed in from most every other attack in the game, allowing Spinning Bludgeon to be more of a meta thing in the regular moveset, which is really cool. But basically after you do anything to the monster, finish a combo off, you go into Spinning Bludgeon, you prep the upswing, and then you land a beautiful offset in response to whatever the monster was going to do. Now you've finished your combo. I think it's a really cool flow for the weapon. We'll have to see what they've actually changed about it in full release. Alright, so here's an upset for our list here. Next is Longsword. Basically middle of the pack, roughly sharing the spot with Dual Blades. Longsword is one of the strongest things in the beta. In beta 1, it was like 3rd place for Raidal. In beta 2, it's like 3rd place for Arkveld. It's absolutely insane to the point where we're expecting it to take a little bit of a nerf at full release, though we've got to see what happens. The new attack, full release after your Helmbreaker, being a ranged incredible DPS option, actually hitting harder than Helmbreaker itself. The way it's got one of the best focus mode strikes because you can get not one but multiple wounds in one go with it, and that actually increases the spirit gauge level ups you get. The new spirit/charge attack that gives you just a spirit level on use. The new moveset when you're in red gauge, whether that's the new Crimson Slash combo, which is really quick and fun, really good range and good for making wounds. The greater range and control you have with focus mode for turning during your round slashes. Extra combos on a round slash into another extra jumping spin. Or the even better ranged ability of a Foresight Slash during red gauge. Basically, you've got loads of ways to level up now. You got loads of ways to spend now. You got enhanced properties when you're in red gauge. The DPS is nuts. And yeah, you're still going to have the great nature of the special sheath and the EI counter, and some of the coolest animations in the game, like say finishing a mount attack and that ridiculous anime sheath he does. So it's performing insane, its moveset's insane, it's one of the most popular weapons in the series, and yet our audience has it about middle of the pack. Not to say it's not popular, that's still a lot of votes, but that was a surprise. So you guys will have to tell me, why is longsword middle of the pack in terms of our audience's popularity? Right there with it then is dual blades, and that is one of the weapons that I main. I feel that this version of dual blades is the best version that we've ever had because it's also arguably the hardest. What I'm talking about is the new nature of your main DPS combo, the blade dance combined with the archdemon's demon flurry, and it's the way you transition between the two. Blade dance is a longer attack and holds you in place, but great DPS. Demon Flurry is a lot shorter, but really good burst DPS considering how quick it is. So, if you're fishing, you're able to Demon Flurry and then see if you can swap to Blade Dance, or Demon Flurry to move around and see if you can Blade Dance in a new location. You can cancel the Blade Dance combo early by Demon Flurrying to interrupt, which gets you out of that animation lock. The fact that you're swapping between modes means whenever you drop into Archdemon during your Demon Flurry, you're getting stamina back. So, min-maxing this weapon has new heights, not to mention the skill check that is Demon Dodge, that perfect evade that gives you a period of time where you have a buff, increasing your element and physical damage, which is a big deal. Let alone the fact that it makes your evades deal damage while attacking, changing the now attack to move rotation. And you got one of the most satisfying wound break animations in the game, with a ridiculous Levi spine spin now being a meta move. This is the best version of dual blades in my opinion we've ever had, and I'm thrilled by it, so I'm very happy. And so yeah, it being about 7th, that's fair enough. Just barely above it though for us was just 3 more votes for 300 votes, Insect Glaive. Crazy that this is as high as it is, considering all of the drama that happened around Beta 1 and the lack of the ability to do the aerial bounce. Why is it so high now then? Well, I think you got 2 sides to it. Firstly, this new version of Insect Glaive that's drastically changed the moveset and the general meta rotation, that feels fresh, it's different. You are lacking in the old minigame with the Kinsect, sure, but it's never been easier to actually get your essences because of Wound Break giving you that, and obviously the way you can use attacks, holding focus mode, and sending the Kinsect out to gather essences while you're doing your own glaive attacks at the same time. I think that's a lot more approachable for new people trying Insect Glaive, meaning a lot more people are interested in it. Not to mention, as always, the fact that it's performing really well in terms of the speedrun numbers. That's going to encourage people to try it because stronger weapon, more fun. Then you have the fact with the community update and all that information about it that they've brought back the aerial playstyle. You've got that bouncing vault. It's coming back at launch. So everyone that was upset about that, they're getting it back. And you've got an offset coming for the super move. That's going to be incredibly useful. So it's looking awesome. And so it's pretty damn popular as it turns out. Above that though, at 5th place total is Switch Axe, which is a big surprise. I covered a lot of Switch Axe for the duration of Rise, a last Monster Hunter game. So when I played the Wilds version, while I did like a lot of the moveset and the options it had, I had a lot of issue with the balancing and the way that it felt to play in this version. It's a fact that the beta version simply has a new move, full release slash, that is basically all of your damage, and so you need to be spamming that as much as possible. But against something tough like Raidao or of course Arkveld, you don't really have the time to do that in its full release version rather than interrupting it every time. Then you've got the offset, which is on axe mode, fair enough, but you got to be in axe mode for that. You're often in sword mode, so you have to use the new counter instead, which feels terrible because you're taking all this chip damage for using it. They've also kind of discouraged the use of the zero-sum discharge attach since it takes a bit longer, it's a bit more clunky now. There's a lot of issues I have with the beta version of the Switch Axe. So in the update for Switch Axe, we know some big things are coming. Damage increase, general moveset cleaning up, the counter, you now have a perfect counter if you time it well, getting punished by the chip damage way less. The full release is now going to be more chunky. It seems to hit harder based on what they've suggested. But also, it's got hyper armor, so you're getting that thing off. So I think there's a lot of Switch Axe fans on the channel. I think there's a lot of people disappointed by the form of it in the beta, understandably. I think there's a lot of people very excited about what's coming in the full release version, where it seems like it's going to be really good. So yeah, it's actually looking like a more popular weapon. Fourth place above that then, we have bow, which was the top performer of Beta 1 and Beta 2. It's no surprise then that the strongest weapon is one of the most popular ones. It's the usual way things go. Though having said that, bow is a more popular weapon in general. But this version's insane. I love the way they changed the coating mechanic, so you're no longer having to stock up and craft and awkward stuff with that. Now you just build the gauge and spend it on coating, and that's awesome. Then you've got tracer arrows, new mechanic, allowing bow to accurately hit the weak points, really focus the damage in one location, sending all the arrows there. The way that they've actually got the dragon piercer to be part of the meta moveset after you focus mode attack, being a quicker shot, super cool. Then you've got discerning dodge, which gives you stamina back when you land a perfect evade. Crazy. And all the other new moves and returning moves. Is absolutely incredible what they've done to the moveset of bow for Wilds. We do know some changes are coming in that the wound targeting is going to be a lot slower and more specific in the full version, in the way that they've reduced the output you're getting from tracer arrows, but they have buffed normal arrows to compensate. So I do think it's going to feel a little bit weaker, but it's still going to be one of, if not the top performer at launch. We'll have to see how it turns out, but yes, its popularity makes sense. Above that then, just barely, we have third place, which is Gunlance. A top performer in Beta 2 for sure, also Beta 1. Its new moveset, the diagonal explosions, the double worm stake explosion, the fact that you can double do the wyvern explode shot, is just awesome. And then it's like the subtle stuff, like the ability to use shelling to do micro movement, which really helps you get out of the bad location into the optimal spot while maintaining a bit of DPS. And it's a shield weapon, so you get the benefits of the new stuff like a clash. The new wound attack, where they sort of drill into the target, super satisfying. It's always been a really cool weapon, but I think it was a little bit comical in Rise and Sunbreak with the aerial zooming around. As cool as that was, this version just feels a lot more grounded, weighty, and strong. So yes, obviously it's one of the most popular weapons, and we already know Greatsword is first place, so what came second? Well, it's the new Charge Blade, which has been one of my main weapons for Wilds, and I actually plan to main it alongside Dual Blades at launch. Why is it so popular? It's because it's so good. It's performed as a top weapon in Beta 1 and 2, and it's also, in my opinion, never been more approachable, because the new meta of the weapon is leaning into Power Axe or Savage Axe mode, whatever you want to call it, the chainsaw mode, by activating Power Axe by landing a perfect guard and then pulling out the axe, or popping a wound, or finishing a mount attack, or a clash and then transform into axe. So you got loads of ways to actually get into Power Axe, and then when you're there, you get this incredibly satisfying new moveset where you're doing these spinning saw attacks with great range, by the way, holding the button to chainsaw into the target, getting into that amped element discharge, and then that new follow-up where he spins the axe around his neck and rests it on his shoulder. I mean, just incredible visually. So it feels awesome, and it looks awesome, and it's also never been more approachable because what I just described, you're basically just pressing B or circle over and over again. Not that complicated. Of course, you still have to play sword and shield and charge the shield up, but there's a new way to do that, which is also more forgiving and kind of easy to understand. You know, you put the sword into the shield and then you hold circle to fully charge up the shield. It just feels intuitive. Of course, you can still do it the old way by going into an amped and then interrupting that with a transform, and that's still obviously a meta way to do it. But yeah, I just think it's a lot more approachable, alongside visually being incredible and feel-wise just so meaty with the chainsaw hits. So I'm not surprised it's so popular as well. So this is our full poll on the list and the ordering, just so you can see at the end here. With Greatsword, Charge Blade taking a noticeable lead over Gunlance, Bow and Switch Axe, with things like Lance, Heavy Bowgun, Light Bowgun being the least popular weapons, making complete sense. Let me know your thoughts on all of this then. Why does it say that Hunting Horn's as low as it is? How the hell is Longsword not higher? Let me know your thoughts. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.